Democrats now forced to admit what most Americans see plain as day. President Biden is a total disaster. Multiple media reports have liberals bashing the commander-in-chief as weak and ineffective, complaining that Joe is not moving fast enough to respond to multiple crises rocking his administration. One liberal lawmaker telling CNN that the Biden administration is, quote, rudderless, aimless, and hopeless. Another saying, quote, it's almost like he's hiding. He has the bully pulpit, and he's either hiding behind it or under it. I don't know where he is. And a Democratic strategist ripping into Biden's team, quote, it's infuriating. Our house is on fire, and it seems like they're doing nothing to put the fire out. They're just watching it with the rest of us. And the usually sympathetic media also bashing Biden.
There is this sense that things are kind of out of control and he's not in command.
We need Joe Biden to be present and to be a leader that meets this moment. I mean, do something, I think is the point that people are saying. We're not giving folk anything to be excited about, and we don't have that fierce urgency of now.
And, you know, things are truly a disaster when Hollywood celebrities jump ship. Actress Deborah Messing reportedly fed up about President Biden's lack of urgency and the administration being unprepared despite weeks of warning on the reversal of Roe versus Wade. She also reportedly claimed credit for getting Joe Biden elected. I guess we better do a check on whether or not Deborah Messing actually got Joe Biden elected. But, Jesse, I'll start with you. When they say we need him to be present and to be the leader, is Joe Biden capable of that?
No, he never was. And I think big tech and China were like, actually, no, we got Joe Biden elected. Just his schedule this week is a perfect example. It's largely ceremonial. On Monday, he has a barbecue for July 4th. On Tuesday, he hangs some medals around some hero's neck. Wednesday, he actually flew to a swing state and gave a speech on what? About the American Rescue Plan he passed last year about COVID. And tomorrow, he is going to Langley to celebrate 75 years at the CIA. And then Friday, he just flies to Delaware for another 3-day weekend. If you're going to give a speech, how about give it about inflation? How about give it about gas prices? Those are the most important issues of the day. Or your base cares about abortion and guns. He doesn't do any of that at all. They want him to perform. The presidency is a performance. If the Supreme Court comes down with a major abortion decision, you cannot give a speech, fly to Delaware, and then take the whole next week and go over to Europe. You can't do that. The left wants to see him spitting mad, hands in the air, out on the streets, raising hell. And he just doesn't have that in him. They want him attacking the Supreme Court. He doesn't want to do that. He can't attack Republicans. They're not even in power. They tried the whole ultra MAGA thing, but it was corny and vague, and now they just put it to bed. So right now, they're really saying, what is your plan of action after Roe? And he didn't have one, but they didn't have one either. Putting abortion clinics in national parks, that's not a real plan. They have to go to the states, and that's where the action is. But under Obama, they lost like every single state house in the country. So it's going to take a long time and a lot of hard work and groundwork to get back to where they need to be.
Sandra, you're the economist at this table. And, you know, with people concerned about, as Jesse said, inflation and the economy, Karine St. Pierre said yesterday, Jean-Pierre, said yesterday, in talking about the economy, she said business investment. Do we have it? Do we have the sound? Oh, go ahead.
We've averaged more than 400,000 jobs every month for the past, over the last month, 3 months. We've held steady at 3.6 of unemployment rate. Consumer spending remains strong and above pre-pandemic trends. Business investment remains strong, and household balance sheets remain strong.
The thing that jumped out at me, Sandra, when she says household balance sheets remain strong.
If that was the case, you wouldn't have a Gallup poll telling you that 23% of the American people have lost confidence in the presidency. Monmouth, just 10% believe that the country is heading in the right direction. Washington Post wants a vibe change from this presidency. To Jesse's point, Governor Pritzker in Illinois said it. We want this president to get loud. We want this president to fight. They want to see anger, angst, urgency. To the point on the economy, if there was a more telling point of this presidency, the president sees that the #1 concern of the American people is inflation and high gas prices. What does he do? He goes out and says, I know that that is the priority. It's the priority for us. We're doing everything we can to bring down those prices. What does he do? He taps the SPR, which is the wrong move. That's not how you address the problem, first of all, and it has not brought down gas prices. And then what happens? Reuters reports starting yesterday, the oil that is coming out of the emergency reserves in this country is going where? Not into the gas tanks of the American people. It's going to China.
China. It's outrageous.
And the White House is asked about it, and Karine Jean-Pierre doesn't even know about it.
Right.
At least she says she doesn't.
Well, I believe she doesn't. All right, so let's, Jessica.
Very generous of you.
Do I need to put a question to you? Can he get any lower in terms of the numbers, or has he hit rock bottom?
Technically, he could go lower. I don't think he will. It's 36% or about there right now. I think that's probably where he'll hover. Two things that I wanted to speak about. One, I think that this frustration about having 6 weeks to be prepared for this is so important to understanding the psyche of liberals right now, but also a lot of moderate Republicans who would have preferred that we had some national protections. And we all saw the polling from earlier this week that, well over 60% were in favor of a 15-week ban. And when you look at the fact that there are in some states where you have, the 10-year-old girl from Ohio who was raped, and because she was 6 weeks and 3 days pregnant, her parents had to take her to the bastion of freedom that is Indiana to get an abortion.
Right.
You can understand why people are saying, why did we not have a plan to combat the chaos? Because
why didn't they?
I don't know. I don't work for the administration. But you did have 6 weeks. No, I definitely don't. Don't start that rumor. 6 weeks is a lot of time to put in place plans to lean on state legislatures and governors to ensure that people are going to be protected, that you can still order your abortion pills online, that you can cross state lines, et cetera. But there's an interesting phenomenon going on with the polling. So Democrats now are running well ahead of Joe Biden. So if you look at 538 right now, there have been 10 polls that have come out in a post-Roe world, and the Democrats are up on the congressional ballot in all of them. So we've seen a 3 to 4 point swing in Democrats' favor. And I think that that's really interesting and a reflection of what's going on in this pushback against what people rightly feel are extremist Republican policies. So I wonder how much campaigning Joe Biden is going to end up doing for the midterms. If someone like Raphael Warnock is up 10 on Herschel Walker in Georgia, maybe people will just go without him. John Fetterman in Pennsylvania.
Well, that's yet to be seen. But, Greg, how do you respond to that?
I don't.
Okay.
That's not fair. You make me respond to you all the time.
I have a really good joke about Yogi Bear. No. All right. So what you're seeing right now, I think what we're looking at is a large hole left vacant by the January 6th hearings. So now you see why the January 6th hearings were so desperately employed and so desperately necessary for the Democrats, right? Because once you remove it, what you have is a gaping lack of leadership, a gaping lack of optimism, common sense, wisdom. We have a giant hole where leadership should be. That is why. So now when you look at the January 6th hearings, because it's coming back, you'll now know why it's there. Because when you take it away, this is what you get. You get this grim testimony about the nature of this White House. So the media has chose to amplify the hearings the same way they de-amplified the Hunter Biden laptop story before an election. This is what's happening with this. It's before an election. It was before an election then. This is why no one should believe or trust anything that's coming from this same cabal that did the Hunter Biden laptop and also did this hearing. It's the same thing. That doesn't mean that the Republicans are just going to skate through this. What bothers me is I don't like the dancing on the grave preliminary kind of celebration. There's never been a better time for the Republicans. You got the Democrats are in a woke paralysis. Right? The loudest, most unhinged voices control their party, and they've relinquished any concern for parents to the Republicans. The Republican Party is now the parents' party. I think we mentioned that early on during those school board hearings when they said this was a great opportunity, and that is what has happened. But you can't just cluck about it. You got to be persuasive to the voters. You got to take it to them, and you got to have practical solutions about the economy, and practical solutions, especially about crime, because we haven't spoken enough about that, the crime that is going on all over. It's not enough to say, ha ha. We actually have to have some reason. And when I mean us, I mean normal, common sense, non-woke people. And I include Democrats in that. I think that this is a time for moderate Democrats to come back and kind of like rediscover the joys of common sense.
Moderate Democrats, are you out there?
Yep.
Yes,
yep.
like-
Yeah, there are a ton of
And
us.
I didn't do my Yogi Bear joke.
And the truth is, we've been waiting to hear from them, but we haven't.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.